Welcome, everybody, to Broadcast Team Alpha, where we bring you can say it with me, cutting edge conversation while exploring the quantum possibilities. And you know what? We are so going to do it again tonight. I am so excited for our guest, and Augie's going to tell us about him in a minute. But as always, I just want to open up with gratitude. I'm so grateful for you being here, grateful for the lively conversation that happens in the chat room. Always so grateful for your super chats that helps us, defray some of the costs of the show. So we're always grateful for that. And if you want to connect with us other than in the chat room, you can reach out to us at broadcastteamalpha.com. And you may know or you may not know that we do the Mastermind Connection on Sunday in a Zoom forum. And that's where a bunch of amazing people who think out of the box, there's no box, come together and we agree on intentions for things that we want to put our love and our focus into for the manifestation of it. So it's an incredible hour, a guided journey, lots of visualization and just amazing feelings, in the slower brain waves. So if you'd like to join us for that, you can send us an email to the mastermind connection, all one word, at gmail.com. Augie will send you the link. You can just pop on in on Sunday. Just do us a favor. If you join us, make sure that you let us know who you are, because if we kind of have to vet the people that come in. So if you come in like as a Zoom user and we don't know who you are, and you don't tell us who you are, then you probably end up in the waiting room for the rest of that gathering. So, all right. Augie, can you tell us about our amazing guests? So exciting.
Yes, I will. Oh, this is going to be fun. We have Palden Jenkins with us, all the way from Cornwall, England, southwest part of the island, where he just told me it rains twice a day, contrary to here, where it rains twice a year. Anyway, he is a world traveler, an author, a writer. He is a humanitarian. And he has studied ancient history and has come forward with some very interesting information. He has written several books, and I was looking at those books a little while ago, and I got to one of them, and I got stuck on that because it got so interesting. The book that I was got stuck on was The Only Planet of Choice. When I'll tell you, folks, when this is over, this show is over, go to the website and read about the Council of Nine and find it. You can find that under books, and specifically the book The Only Planet of Choice. You're gonna be grateful that you go there and have a look. And that is why I also want to talk and discuss with him what our lives would be like after the extraterrestrials make their presence known. I think it's going to change our lives in major ways. New technologies probably seeping in, new thinking, maybe even the most locked into the box people that you can possibly think of. They're going to start finding a crack in that box to look outside and see what in the world were I missing. So this is something that is coming, and I know we're going to talk about it. So I am excited, Paulden, to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Welcome, Paulden. Yes.
Nice to see you. Nice to meet you all.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So this is going to be exciting. We were having a very lively conversation before we came on, and we had to stop it so it could be fresh and new when we began the show. But how you do so many things. You're a writer. You're living your life differently. You've had your experience. How did this begin for you? Did you see traces of it in your childhood, or could you see it coming, or can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, I couldn't exactly see it coming, but when I was a child, I felt very much a misfit in this world and very much a stranger. It turned out later on, it took until I was 65 to learn that I'd had Asperger's syndrome.
Oh.
And Aspies, we call it wrong planet syndrome. And basically, that's kind of what it's like.
Yeah.
It's a kind of a different operating system. It's not a programming error, it's a different operating system. So it started there, but really also I happened to grow up in 1960s Liverpool and I found myself as a teenager in the middle of an amazing scene. And then I went to a university which became pretty much the center in Britain for the student revolution in the late 1960s. And so all of those things were squeezing changes out of me. Another defining event was being involved in Bloody Sunday, which was a vital event that happened in Northern Ireland in the early 70s. And then in 1972 also, I had a close encounter, would you believe?
Mm-hmm.
And so all of these things were peeling new stuff off me. And so that's in answer to your question. I think it was a series of
Mm-hmm.
changes. And it was also, I think I was helped by where I grew up and the time I grew up in, because it was a time of change. It was a time when it was positive to move forward and to explore.
Yes.
Very different from nowadays, you know. And
Yeah.
so it kind of started there, really. It was a matter of, and as I went through this process, I kind of, instead of feeling a misfit that there was something wrong with me, I was realizing that there was something right with me. It was all right, you know.
Yes.
And although also I've had throughout my life, even up to this day in my 70s, I've had throughout my life quite a lot of difficulties dealing with the world and with relationships and with situations and things like that, you know, as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's the
Well, we're
strange
glad.
life of being a bit of an outsider, really, you know.
Wow. We're glad you're here. And I mean, and some of that is classic Asperger's, right? The
Yeah,
relationships. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And it might
So,
be,
And then
no, go
and
ahead.
then you had a near-death experience.
yeah.
When did that come? What did you see there?
That was when I was 24. It was food poisoning.
Wow.
My best friend died.
Oh my goodness.
Another person survived, and I survived, but I was unconscious for 8 or 9 days.
That was some kind of food poisoning,
Yeah,
Paulden. Wow.
it was serious. Yeah, it was serious.
Wow.
And so what happened was that, you know, this chap Michael and I, we went up to the pearly gates, you know. It was kind of like that. And the man, the guardian at the gates, he took Michael and said, you know, and ushered him forward, and off Michael went. And he just looked at me and said, "No, you're not finished yet."
Wow.
And then something very remarkable happened, really. A process started up, and I can't remember all the details at the moment, but a new me popped out of the old me.
Mm-hmm.
And I suddenly felt myself to be two people at once.
Wow.
I was in both of me separately. It was very, very bizarre. And then what happened was I was supposed to, and I was looking from the viewpoint of the new me, I was supposed to reach into the heart of the old me and reach out the spark of life and bring it to myself and push it into myself.
Wow.
When that happened, the old me gradually kind of evaporated
Interesting.
in light, in a funny sort of way. It just evaporated. And this being, this guardian of the gates or whatever,
Yes.
gave me some sort of teachings, which I do not remember. But I'm sure it was programming me for something.
Yes.
And then basically I went through the process of re-entering the world. It was very, very difficult. It's sort of like getting squeezed. It's dark. It's turbulent. It's worrying. It's intense.
Sounds like birth.
Yes, it's like birth. It's like birth. Yeah. And anyway, so that was that. And I woke up with much of my memory gone, including my memory of early life.
Wow.
Which I've never fully retrieved.
Interesting.
But there's one interesting thing I've observed from this is that a lot of the pain and a lot of the problems we get as human beings are connected with memory.
Oh, I like that.
They're connected with remembering stuff that's happened, For example, I've done work in crisis and war zones where I've seen some pretty bad things, and I've been with people who've been through some pretty traumatic things as well, And the funny thing is that this lack of memory, even for things after this, throughout the rest of my life, this lack of memory has in a way helped me deal with PTSD. I know, although I do have some PTSD symptoms, in another way, I know it's much lighter than it really than it really could be compared with other people, Yes. And so it's fascinating, all that.
So can we just go back to the pearly gates for a minute? I'm just curious. I know that was probably a very light state of being, but when you were told you had to come back, did you have any judgment or feelings of it? Like,
I hated the idea.
You did.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God. But it was
really?
Also, but it was also a growing sense of taking on a responsibility, which I was already there from before, but I had to retake that responsibility. And about 7 years after that whole near-death experience, basically it came to me, and I took on a mission, which went through the 1980s and the 1990s, and it affected a large number of people in a very good way, in a very transformative way. It was consciousness raising camps for people from about 100 to 500 people.
Wow.
And it was real pioneering stuff. And that was a way in which I could create an environment in which people could experience something of the magical world. Here we're coming to an answer to your question, the magical world which is possible on planet Earth and the way that it will be, that because during those camp events, we had some amazing things that happened, just amazing things.
Because of the raising of consciousness?
Yeah.
Everything.
Yeah. And it even seemed to go in alignment with the weather.
Interesting.
Example, And this says something like to answer your question about the future, I mean, this is a long way ahead. We've got a lot to resolve before we get here. But basically, it's got something to do with understanding the relationship between consciousness, gravity, light, physical matter, vibration, and how to interact much more with these.
Yes.
Now, I've been studying this in relation to ancient sites. In the area where I live, we have a lot of ancient sites here from the Neolithic and the Bronze Age, which is 4,000 to nearly 6,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And one of the things they were doing, I think, with things like stone circles was that they were creating these energy generators, which were plugged into underground water. They were aligned to astronomical alignments, to the rising and setting points of the sun and moon and stars. They were built in a certain way to channel energy. And then what they did was they chose PowerPoint, what you can call PowerPoints in time, such as eclipse moments, solstices, or there are certain particular moments when the energy is high, and everyone listening to this will be able to relate to moments like that they have had when it's quite intense. Because at those particular times, for example, on an eclipse, the sun, moon, and earth are all lined up, and there is a thrum which becomes more resonant. And this resonance has an effect on the very way in which physics works. And this is the stuff. Here we go into what we would now call miracles, right?
Yeah.
And a miracle is something which gets done, which no one thought was possible up to that moment, but they're forced to see that it is possible because it's happening in front of them. You know, that's what a miracle is. And I think one component of this is that we will have grown to a stage where we are much more in tune with our consciousness and with the consciousness within all things and all beings, so that questions such as climatic and environmental issues have a much deeper element to them here. And we actually have access already to a lot of the precursor technologies and methods which have arisen in the last century or so amongst various geniuses which have come up and added to the stock of knowledge about things that we would regard as impossible at the moment, such as free energy, you know, or anti-gravitational machines, or zero energy generation, you know, this kind of thing, and the capacity to transport ourselves without the use of any fossil fuels or things like that, you know. All these things I think are possible. It's a deeply, you could say, shamanistic thing on a very, very deep level. And actually there is precursor knowledge that is with us now. You've got to seek it out. You've got to find the people, you know, and all the rest of it. There is knowledge in all sorts of different areas, you know. I have it in specific areas myself, and other people are really good at other things, you know. And so
I got a question about that pearly gate still.
Yeah.
When you arrived there, what do you think arrived there? Was it your soul, or was it consciousness? Or would it be both? Or are the consciousness an integral part of the soul, or is there a difference? What do you think came to the pearly gate?
The way I understand it, at least, is that consciousness and soul are different. Soul seems to me to be the real core of ourselves and our personality and character, and the way that we're programmed up and the way that we experience life. And I think this goes beyond lives. It goes beyond this life. But there's, for example, we can also see it in this life, because, you know, as you go through life, actually you're living a series of different lives. Because if you think of, you know, of your life a few decades ago, if you're an older listener, then you've already gone through a number of lives which are quite different from each other. And yet they have a certain connecting core to them, which does make it the same life as well. And so there's something here where the soul does have character, and it has its own proclivities, its own ways, its own nature. There's one, I've done a lot of past life regression work and things like that. And one of my friends once said to me, because she knew I had been one particular historic character back in medieval times, and and she said to me, look, she got out a book and she showed me a picture of this guy, and he was sitting in exactly the way that I sit in this life. And she was looking down at what was written in this biography of this guy, and he had the same kind of diet and preferences and ways of operating and all this kind of thing. And it was just fascinating.
That is fascinating.
Mm.
That is fascinating. So I would like to just differentiate again. So consciousness and soul are different. I get that. And I love the way that you explained, you know, that it's so much of how we experience life. How does spirit factor in between those two?
Difficult, really. The thing is, I would look on what we could loosely call soul as a sort of a sheath into which consciousness and or spirit insert themselves. Now, the thing is that consciousness and spirit aren't of the self. They are wider, bigger stuff. But they insert themselves into us, into a certain kind of personality. You know, so we've got a little line into universal mind going on here. You know, we've got a line into God, or however you see it. Yeah. And so that's not of the self, whereas the soul it's got character. It's an individual. It's doing its best in its own particular way. It's seeking to evolve, things like that, you know. Now, spirit and consciousness, different aspects of the same thing. It's a tough one.
It's a tough one, but let's say the soul is the encompassing spark of life, so to say. And then consciousness is part of that. Maybe spirit is part of that. Humans are most often, I would think, get attached, or should I say the body is attached to a soul. But for animals, they may not have the soul essence, but they have spirit. Spirit may also involve consciousness. I want to hear your comments on this. If, let's say, a horse, let's take a simpler one, maybe a dog has spirit, which in some way have memory and personality that also transcends death and can become an essence that hangs around after they drop the body to possibly stay with the owner or move on somewhere. Do you think there is a correlation in there somewhere?
Yes, there is. I think for me, spirit is what brings me alive. And I've really had to work with this with cancer, because, you know, I've been down in the depths with this stuff, you know, and it's been really difficult at times. And one thing I have really, really deeply learned during this experience is that if I keep my spirits up, I'm going to be all right. Law of the universe, that's it. It really, really is true. And so it's so important, therefore, to, now here we come to the next bit, maintain the right kind of consciousness through this, and to use it. And the fascinating thing is that there have been gifts, because, for example, the cancer drugs, they do give you chemo brain. But I as a result of that, I've actually made quite a lot of progress in meditation. And believe me, I've been meditating for 45 bloody years, you know. But there's been a certain relaxation that has gone on with these pharmaceutical drugs, which has actually been very enlightening in its own way in terms of consciousness. I've traveled a long way, and it's been quite a wonderful experience at times, you know.
That's
So
interesting.
So in a way, spirit and consciousness are very related. But I think spirit is the spark which makes us want to get up in the morning, what makes us want to move forward and evolve, in some way become more of ourselves or more, and in some way make life good. I learned this particularly with the Palestinians. They're very interesting people because they've been embattled for generations, and they're very good at staying as happy as possible under the most difficult circumstances. They're very good at it. And they really taught me a lot about that. And because it's about being on planet Earth, because planet Earth is an enormous dilemma. Being on planet Earth, we're faced, it's such a complex process, this being alive business, and for people in a war zone, you think of people in Ukraine at the moment, they're taking on double trouble in terms of worldly experience, and for some of them it'll be a very, very evolutionary thing, and for others it'll be quite tragic, and others of course will die and all sorts of things. And so that's quite an amazing thing. The spirit, the will to keep going and to make something good out of even a bad situation. And I think we're faced with this in the 21st century. That's the bottom line.
I wonder also, now you ended up having cancer. Do you think that was part of your plan that you agreed to have before maybe you in your stupor somewhere took on this body and ended up living this life? Do you think that was predetermined or as part of your plan to learn from, or did you just happen to accidentally get it?
No, it took me a while to come through to this, but I realized this is mine. This is mine. That it comes the medical explanation for it is toxicity arising from electromagnetic or nuclear radiation, but it also can be toxic chemicals. But I don't think that's the case for me. I think I'm on the radiation side. And so that's true. But I think the proclivity, the tendency for it was mine. And so in a strange sort of way, although it was very difficult to come to this, it was a big process of acceptance, but I came to realize, yeah, this fits in the pattern of my life, and this is part of my life. One of the things I learned from the Palestinians in particular is always look for the gift in a situation. What are you being given here? And I looked for the gift, and I have been given some amazing gifts through cancer, because it's such a day-to-day life, and because my life is rather tenuous, and because I get pain and difficulty and things like that. So it sharpens consciousness.
I bet.
Yes.
I see we have 30 seconds left here before the break at the bottom of the hour, where we are going to do a video. And then after that, we stay with us, folks, because we're going to talk about the extraterrestrial presence and also Palden's personal close encounter, maybe even the Council of Nine. So this is going to get good. Nora, you want to say something about that video first?
No, let's watch the video.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Mac. All right.
Okay, we are back.
That was 30 seconds of what's coming. We've been talking about it for a while, that we're still going to continue doing what we've been doing at Broadcast Team Alpha, all of the topics and interviews that you would expect. But now we're going to add another component, and that's health and lifestyle and navigating life in this body. I think many of us have been called for different reasons to recognize our body, after being shut down for a couple of years and things change for us. So we're going to be drawing, the correlation between living in higher consciousness in sync with your body. You can get to higher consciousness through your body. It's not just a heady, cosmic event. So we're going to have all kinds of really great stuff. And of course, when you feel better and you create better health, then you want to keep it. So that's how you begin to shape your lifestyle. And we're going to talk all about that too. So, all right, I want to hear about Paulden's experience.
Yes.
With our off-planet people, if we may.
Lay it on us, Paulden.
Well, I was 22 years of age. I was in a place in mid Wales, in Britain, with a friend. We were out for a walk on a rather still, clear, starry, dark new moon night. And suddenly we saw a classic lenticular craft just over a rather ancient site called Castle Hill in mid Wales. We were about a little bit less than half a mile away, and it was the lenticular shape, and after a while small craft started coming out of it. And this experience lasted somewhere between 20 and 40 minutes. It's difficult to tell. We talked about it with each other. We turned around, turned back to see if it was still there, and it was. And we were quite amazed by the whole thing. Neither of us was really prepared for the experience, but we were not close to it either. And so that was the experience. And eventually what happened was that they just sort of faded out. The small craft went into the big craft, and it just kind of faded out. And my feeling after that was, I now understand what blessing means.
Aww.
It was really quite a special experience, that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what happened was that when I was 50, which was 28 years after, I did a past life regression to relive that, a regression, with a researcher who was a regressionist and researched ET regressions. And that was a whole different story.
Yeah.
While I was standing there with my friend, there was another part of me that got sucked into this craft, and then they gave me a whole load of experiences, and also I participated in a particular task, which was to do with a minor intervention they were having to make at that time in 1972 to do with our nuclear technologies not working right. And they needed my help, seemingly. It turned out that it was to do with, it was calling me back on a past life duty I had, which was all to do with the gentle art of planet fixing. But we won't go into that. So anyway, what I've done is actually I've recorded the transcript of that session as a podcast, and it's on my site, which is at palden.co.uk. palden.co.uk. And if you look for the podcasts and click that, you'll find it there. It's called Close Encounter, and it's 30 minutes long. And it goes into the full detail of it, because quite frankly, I can't really reproduce this stuff as I'm talking to you now. And this says something about the expansion of consciousness that does happen in relation to when you start interacting with these beings. Your consciousness does get lifted up and opened out if you allow it. A lot of people go into fear and difficulty around that time, but we're obliged, if we're gonna start interacting with ETs, for example, we've got to stretch ourselves a long, long way to understand where they're really at, where they're really coming from, and what all this applies, what this means to me, what to us, what it implies for humanity. And this is to answer a question which Arga made earlier, I think, which is, it's about the interaction and it's about the landing. Because you see, the question here really is, we've got to fix this ourselves. That's the real issue. A landing to save us would be an enormous mission failure. It would be a failure of the complete history of planet Earth going back thousands of years. It would mean that the purpose of all of the souls who have ever lived and who are alive today would get totally scuppered. It would mean that there is a soul refugee problem across the universe of at least 8 billion souls, traumatized, screwed up, and having gone through experiences which most people in most worlds never, ever go to. Now, looked at from this viewpoint, you see, the thing is, if they came along to save us, our whole psychology, our culture, our way of life would completely be overrun. It would be overwhelmed. We wouldn't be able to focus. We've still got to have people going out to milk the cows and maintain the nuclear power stations, you know? So this has to be done very carefully. And really, the issue is that we have to go halfway. Now, this is what I learned very much when I was working with crop formations in the 1990s and early noughties. Now, the issue here, just to be very brief about it, the issue here with the crop formations is not exactly the wheat and the patterns, although these themselves are very significant. It's the space inside. It is an energy field, an intensified energy field, and it is a form of close encounter that you get if you allow it. But most people do, because the energy of a good crop formation, it can be quite overwhelming. It does change your consciousness. I've seen it happen with so many people, and it's amazing. And it's happened with me too.
And it's not just the energy. There's also the design itself. I have seen a crop circle, a crop formation that actually had the design of a free energy motor.
Yep. There's amazing stuff. Thousands of things have gone on. Yeah. Now these are all sorts of things, actually. They're also, I would say, programming keys, which are inserting new programming routines into the morphogenetic fields of the Earth. They're also a way of surveying who responds, because it is an act of free will to enter a crop formation. It is a choice to do so, and that for them is a way of having a census of who is responding to us. You know, now these are intelligences, and here we come to the business of what I call MDIs, multi-dimensional intelligences. Because we can't talk about ETs alone. There are physical ETs, yes. We are physical ETs ourselves. And but also there are ETs who are not necessarily physical in the way we would know it, but they can manifest in the physical if they need to. And some of those who interact with planet Earth do that, but they can't do it for that long. It's a lot of effort. It's a bit like us going underwater. We have to do a lot of work at that in order to survive underwater, you know. And then there are beings that are much more, well, they have their own materiality in their reality. But what we're talking about here is a reality which is a bit more like our dream time, because we are multidimensional beings. We have our daily waking life. We're in a body, you know, here we are talking on video, but also when we go to sleep, we switch all that off and we go into other worlds. And you know the way in which that world works. It's quite different. It's one of the characteristics of it is that if you think of something, it is there, which is quite a different thing from down here on planet Earth. You know, if we think of something, well, it can take a lifetime to manifest it, you know, or whatever. And some things are very complicated and a lot of things go wrong on planet Earth, you know, especially if you live in somewhere like Kharkiv at the moment, you know, in Ukraine. And so where have I got to? Sorry, I've lost my way.
And what I heard you say a little earlier, that, you know, we have to solve this ourselves.
Yes.
And chances are that is maybe several components to that, so that we have to solve it, but we have to change our thinking in order to solve it. So they are waiting for us to raise our vibration to a little higher conscious thinking so we can. So they're hanging out because we can see them right now. The ships are all around the moon. For a strong telescope, you can see them. And they're here waiting for us to get our stuff together.
Yeah. Exactly. We have to go that way. There is help. You know, there is inspiration available. There are geniuses around who fetch amazing stuff out. I'm amazed at some of the stuff that's going on in Africa at the moment, in the way of real innovation, you know, in the absence of tractors and tools and chemicals and things. They're innovating like crazy in places like that, you know. And so there is help available. And what I've found in life is it's no use sitting there praying to God and sort of asking for help on these things. What we've got to do is we've got to start. You know, you've just got to put your money where your mouth is and start. You've got to move that mountain, and then support comes. And this is the free will issue, you see. This planet was set up in order to be a hybridization station for individualized free will. And therefore, if there is such a thing as an ET rescue plan, that would breach the free will of our planet, and the whole agenda of our planet would be scuppered completely. But on the other hand, if we humans take initiatives, they will often give us a booster. They'll give us some inspiration. They'll give us some answers. You know, it happens. You see it in science, you see it in all sorts of other areas, you know, where inspired answers come. Then
free will could even go to the level, like, let's say if enough of us got together and say, hey, we're sick of this cover up. We are ready for extraterrestrial beings to show themselves. If we requested it, and many enough minds got together and requested that, chances are we would see something, don't you think?
That's possible. I really don't know. It's up to them to decide. You know, it's not really for us. They'll do whatever they feel is the best thing to do. But they do make themselves visible. You know, they've already found out that there's no point landing on the White House lawn. It won't achieve anything at all, so they don't even bother. You know, And the trouble is that we humans have become such big rejectors of them. We have been given so much evidence on a mass scale over the years, but basically we reject it. And so there's no point trying to beat our brains out if we keep on rejecting it, you know.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, there are individuals, there are people who are tuned into this. There are a lot of contactees out there. There are a lot of sensitive people, a lot of people who've woken up in all sorts of different ways. And even if they're not into ETs or anything, they're still following their path. And that is the important thing. You know, that's the solution to the problems on planet Earth, is if everyone follows their calling, we shall get there. You know, but
in your book there, you write about 24 physical civilizations on different levels, both parallel existences as well as higher vibratory existences.
yeah,
Speak to these 24.
They're not physical civilizations as such. They are organizing principles by which the universe works. And there appear to be 24 of them. And they work through other civilizations, some of which will be physical. And so it's a kind of a bit like a management structure for the universe, in a manner of speaking. And they cover different ground. Now, the 9 did outline some of them, but the problem they were saying, they quite repeatedly were saying, the problem we have here is that we can't find the concepts in your brains which would truly describe this. And this was a regular problem. When Phyllis Schlemmer, she called herself a transceiver, when she was in her deep trance, and we were talking to the 9, we were spending a lot of time just trying to find the right words, because these beings have not been on Earth. They don't use words, and they don't really understand our crazy concepts. And so sometimes we had to really dredge around to try, and it was quite a lengthy process, you know, to try and find the right words to express it. And so anyway, they outlined various different kinds of civilizations, one of which was a highly intelligent, you could say science-based civilization, one of which was very creative, artistic, one of which was working with pain and difficulty as an experience, as a honing of the soul. There was another which was operated like a computer or a superintelligence, and different things like this, where they seem to be operating principles by which the universe works, is all I can really say. They call them a civilization. They're not physical, but they are of the mind. They are of consciousness. They are there. You could theoretically go and visit them, theoretically, but they're not physical.
Well, the vibratory spectrum goes so far beyond what we can experience.
Yes.
We're just a very small part of it. And we could wonder what lives in the other vibrations above us, or, hey, even below us.
Yes.
There are things there, there are entities, there are consciousness beings, there is stuff there that we cannot see because our eyes are not designed to operate in that level of vibration on the light spectrum. And also, we cannot feel it because it's beyond our vibration of sense. So they're there because we do see them, actually. I see them all the time around the house here, shadow people. Off my 90 degrees, I see them out there. I see them moving around, and they're getting more and more visible right now. And they're there.
The universe is made up of this. This is how it operates, you know. And although they are kind of visible to us, this is one of the secrets with psychic sensitivity, for example. A lot of people say, you know, they say, oh, you're psychic, you know, as if you're special in some way. No, it's not exactly that, although I guess I have a bit of a gift, but it's because I've given attention to it. You've got to give yourself permission to see and to feel and to sense. And because things become more visible then. And there's another thing here as well, which is that you'll tune into the vibration which you tune into. So choose your wavelength, because there's a lot of stuff around, and you just need to choose your wavelengths carefully about the worlds which we ourselves individually are connected with. Because one of the things the Nine used to say, which I fully agree with them, is not a single soul on planet Earth began their journey here.
Yep.
In other words, we are all ETs.
Yeah.
So really, we're not talking about aliens here.
Right.
And people who are afraid of ETs, just remember one thing: some of the most dangerous beings in this universe are humans from planet Earth. They will wipe out people in millions.
Yeah.
So, you know.
And then we hear people talking about, oh, the aliens are going to conquer us. They're going to come and take over Earth. Well, if they had wanted to do that, they would have done that a long time ago, before we figured out how to use atomic weapon against them.
Yes, yes. But they did start manifesting themselves around that time.
Yeah.
And as it happens, my aunt was one of the first government UFO investigators in history, because she was in the intelligence in World War II, debriefing bomber pilots coming back from Germany who were reporting on Foo Fighters buzzing them on the way back. And she was collecting these reports. Fascinating.
Very fascinating. Can you talk about the Council of Nine? Can we go there?
Well, they seem to be, again, they're part of the organizing principle of the universe. You know, it's sort of like God has to have a management structure in order to bring him to deal with all the complexities of manifesting a universe and managing the basic principles of it. You know, that's what we're talking about here, really. A weak analogy would be an enormous, well, would be perhaps like something like the United Nations, with all sorts of constituent organizations which do the overall work of the United Nations. And then there are people who get hauled in from outside to, in a sense, do a contract for the UN in some way, say peacekeepers and people like that, you know. And so that's a weak parallel, but it's much more organic than that. And it's not hierarchical either. The thing is that civilizations or cultures grow because souls gather together and they create a culture. That, you know, they create a scene amongst themselves. They create something, a shared consciousness and a shared creativity and things like that. And the more souls that align in that way, the stronger that energy field becomes. And this is where meditation work comes in, for example, with things like meditation link-ups and things, and working with consciousness to try and help the world, which is a big issue we need to develop during the 21st century. You know, climate change, part of the cause of climate change is simply human psycho-spiritual turbulence. We've got 8 billion people on planet Earth stirring things up, feeling insecure, carrying out violence, drinking loads of coffee, and basically we're causing the atmosphere to just churn.
Yeah, don't mess with my coffee.
You see what I mean? Yeah.
Say that again. Psycho what?
Well, we're just creating this psycho-spiritual turbulence.
I love it.
Yeah.
you know, and the
Yeah.
weather is the most flexible thing on Earth. It's the thing which changes easiest. You know, rocks, they move differently, you know, and what have you. And so yeah. So
I
there's a
think that is,
consciousness thing here.
I think it's becoming totally obvious to me that we are being monitored. We are being observed by an outside or present extraterrestrial observation. And because they're doing that, why? Maybe they also had a finger or two in creating us or seeding us here. What do you
Oh,
think
yes.
about that?
Yes, yes, yes. All of us in various different ways, or at least they set up the mechanisms, and also different ethnic groups have different kinds of ET genes.
Yeah.
And that's a big story in its own right, which I don't think, you know, but part of the issue with the variety is the variety of different kinds of souls who are on planet Earth. Planet Earth was set up to be a bit like a sort of a New York City or a Singapore in the universe, where people could come from all over the universe to interact and hopefully hybridize something new, which no one had ever thought up before. You see, this is the great thing about free will, is that if you think of God as making an enormous game called the universe, then there's no point making a game where God knows the outcome. God needs a surprise. And so he creates, or it creates, free will creator beings which will think up all sorts of things. And so here on planet Earth, we've got things like baked beans and cruise missiles and violins and all sorts of things which they just wouldn't think up in other parts of the universe. You know, so this is the creator creating amazing new things through free will beings. If only we didn't waste so much on cruise missiles and we did some more creative things, that would be so amazing, you know. But we have certain things available to us. For example, we have the ability to have poetry and literature because of our use of words. Now, most beings talk directly mind to mind, so they don't actually have literature. They don't have poetry. They don't have ways of using words that we do. And so it's very interesting for them because we've got Shakespeare and we've got, you know, we've got all this stuff going on, all these people making music as well, you know, and then there are the arts, because we are very physical, we're very dense physical beings. And so our creativity has to manifest in quite physical ways, you know. And so that's an amazing thing about being on planet Earth, you know. And if you wanna get off planet Earth and be somewhere else, just remember you don't get chocolate up there. So make sure you're ready to let go of your chocolate.
That's right. That's
right.
Sage in the chat room asked if the Council of Nine has changed.
Not that I'm aware of, because their own life cycle, if it is such a thing, would be measured in
millennia,
millions at least of years. Yes. I hadn't really thought about that one, but you know, so really they're organizing principles of the universe that doesn't change.
Yes.
You know.
One other question in the chat room: when you were at the pearly gates, did you see angels?
Not exactly, but the being and the beings I sensed around were very etheric and had light. Whether that's an angel or not, I don't really know, but they didn't look like the classic Christian angels as such, but they were beings of light and an immense kind of serenity and knowledge and something beyond time. you know?
Yes, that's lovely.
Yeah.
That's lovely. I can't believe an hour has gone by already.
Yeah.
That's what
Can you
happens.
tell people how to reach you, Paulden?
Well,
How
the
to
thing
find your
is,
book?
I might look all right at the moment, but I'm not high performance. So please, I
Bless you.
can't chat or operate in normal circumstances, and I don't have a personal assistant for that. But you can get me through my website, palden.co.uk, where there's quite a lot of interesting stuff. And also you can find me on Facebook and contact me there.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Or just Google me, you know, it's easy.
Just Google me.
I've been online since the beginning.
Yeah. And I highly recommend for people to get in there and look at the books, because you got quite a few of them, and especially that one about the only planet of choice. Have a really close look at that one, because that's where I got stuck. I couldn't get any further than that one.
Yeah. No, that's out of print, unfortunately, but it's still an amazing book. I was very privileged to be involved in that. Very privileged.
Oh, you mean we can't get it now?
Only secondhand. There is another version I think you can get. I don't know. I can't remember actually what's happening at the moment.
Okay, well,
but,
Google that.
Yeah, sniff around. Yeah.
That's great. All right, guys. So that's it for tonight. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much, Paulden. I really enjoyed conversing with you and on all the levels. It was beautiful. Augie, thank you as always. And everybody, we're working on a Broadcast Team Alpha TV network. This is hot off the press news. So soon you're going to see us on Roku and on Fire TV. So stay tuned, guys. We got lots of cool stuff happening. Take care, everybody. Much love.
Take
and
care.
We'll see you next week.
Thank you, Paulden, for being with us.
Bye-bye.
Live long and prosper.
And the same to